What happens when Hollywood royalty meets television's most unfiltered host, and the conversation spirals completely out of control? Tonight we're diving into the most explosive television moment that had everyone talking, a confrontation. So intense it ended with security being called and a guest being escorted off set. Before we get into this incredible story, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below with your thoughts on celebrity interviews gone wrong. The studio lights were blazing as Bill Maher settled into his chair, that familiar smirk already forming on his face. Across from him sat Meghan Markle, perfectly poised in an elegant navy blazer, her hands folded neatly in her lap. The audience was electric with anticipation, sensing this wasn't going to be your typical promotional interview. So Meghan Markle began leaning back in his chair with that casual confidence he's known for. "You've been making quite the waves lately with your new ventures. But I have to ask, don't you think the constant victim narrative is getting a bit old?" The question hung in the air like a loaded weapon. Meghan's smile faltered for just a fraction of a second before she composed herself, tilting her head slightly. "I'm sorry, Bill, but I think you might have me confused with someone else. I've never portrayed myself as a victim. I've simply shared my truth." "Your truth," Maher repeated, his voice dripping with skepticism. "Right? Because apparently everyone gets their own truth these days. But here's the thing. When you go on national television and talk about how terrible your life was in the royal family, while sitting in a mansion in California, some people might call that playing the victim card." The audience shifted uncomfortably in their seats. This wasn't the softball interview they'd expected. Meghan straightened in her chair, her voice becoming more measured and deliberate. "Bill, I think you're oversimplifying a very complex situation. When I spoke about my experiences, I was trying to shed light on important issues like mental health and institutional racism." "Institutional racism," Maher scoffed, throwing his hands up theatrically. "In the British royal family. Come on, Meghan. You married into the most traditional, old-school institution in the world. What did you expect? A woke revolution?" The tension in the studio was palpable now. Meghan's composure was starting to crack, her voice gaining an edge. "I expected basic human decency, Bill. I expected to be treated with respect, not to have my mental health dismissed and my concerns about my child's safety ignored." "Your child's safety," Maher shot back, leaning forward now, his voice becoming more aggressive. "You mean the concerns about how dark his skin might be? Because that's a pretty serious accusation to throw around without naming names, don't you think?" The audience gasped audibly. Several people in the front row exchanged worried glances. Meghan's face flushed, her hands gripping the arms of her chair. Those conversations happened. "Bill, I'm not going to sit here and let you minimize racism just because it makes you uncomfortable." "Uncomfortable?" Maher laughed, but there was no humor in it. "I'm not uncomfortable with anything. I'm uncomfortable with people who use serious issues like racism as a shield against any criticism. You can't just cry racism every time someone disagrees with you." "I have never done that," Meghan snapped, her voice rising for the first time. "And frankly, I'm appalled that you would suggest I have. You're sitting here, a privileged white man, telling me how to respond to racism. Do you not see the irony in that?" The studio fell silent, except for the hum of cameras. Maher's eyes narrowed, his trademark smirk disappearing completely. "Privileged white man? Really? That's your go-to argument?" "I've been fighting for civil rights since before you were born, sweetheart. Don't lecture me about privilege." "Don't call me sweetheart," Meghan said icily, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "And don't pretend that your past activism gives you a free pass to dismiss the experiences of women of color today." "I'm not dismissing anything," Maher fired back, his voice getting louder. "I'm questioning the narrative. I'm questioning why someone who lived a life of luxury and privilege suddenly becomes the poster child for oppression the moment things don't go their way." The audience was dead silent now, sensing this had moved far beyond the realm of normal television discourse. Meghan stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. "You know what, Bill? I came here thinking we could have an intelligent conversation about important issues. Instead, you've decided to ambush me with tired talking points and personal attacks." "Ambush?" Maher stood as well, his voice echoing through the studio. "Lady, this is what we call journalism. This is what happens when someone actually asks You tough questions instead of throwing you softball interviews designed to make you look good. Tough questions. Meghan's voice was shaking now, whether from anger or emotion. It was hard to tell. You haven't asked me a single legitimate question. You've just hurled accusations and insults. This isn't journalism, it's character assassination. The confrontation was escalating rapidly, and Maher seemed to be feeding off the energy. Character assassination. I'm holding you accountable for your own words, your own actions. If you can't handle that, maybe you shouldn't be doing interviews. Maybe I shouldn't be doing interviews with people who have already made up their minds about me before I even sit down. Meghan shot back, her voice carrying across the stunned studio. You invited me here under false pretenses, Bill. No intention of having a fair conversation. Fair conversation. Maher laughed bitterly. You want fair? Let's talk about fair. Is it fair to trash an entire family on international television? Is it fair to make accusations you can't prove? Is it fair to play the race card every time someone criticizes you? The words hit like a slap. Meghan's face went pale, then flushed red with anger. Play the race card. Did you just seriously say that to me in front of all these people? The studio audience was shifting uncomfortably, some people covering their faces with their hands. This had moved far beyond awkward into genuinely disturbing territory. Maher seemed oblivious to the line he'd just crossed, or maybe he didn't care. Yes, I said it, Maher continued, his voice cutting through the stunned silence. And I'll say it again. You cannot use your race as a shield against legitimate criticism. That's not how the world works, Meghan. The color drained from Meghan's face completely now, her hands trembling slightly as she stared at him in disbelief. You are unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. Do you hear yourself right now? Do you understand what you're saying? I understand perfectly, Maher replied, crossing his arms defiantly. I'm saying what everyone else is thinking, but is too afraid to say. You've made a career out of being a victim, and when that didn't work in England, you came back here and played the racism card. Made a career out of being a victim? Meghan's voice was rising again, her composure completely shattered now. I was an actress, Bill. I had a successful career before I ever met Harry. I gave up everything to marry into that family, and when I tried to speak up about the way I was treated, I was silenced. Silenced, Maher scoffed. You were on the biggest interview in television history, complaining about how silenced you were. Do you not see the contradiction there? That interview was after I left, Meghan snapped. After I was pushed out. After I was driven to the point where I didn't want to be alive anymore. But I suppose you'd think that was just me being dramatic too. The studio fell into a heavy silence. Several audience members looked genuinely uncomfortable, and one woman in the front row was shaking her head in disapproval. Maher's expression flickered for just a moment, as if he realized he might have gone too far, but then his defiant mask slipped back into place. Look, Meghan, he said, his tone becoming slightly more measured, but still condescending. I'm not saying you didn't have a hard time. I'm saying that millions of people have hard times, and they don't get to go on international television and trash their families. Trash their families. Meghan's voice was incredulous. I shared my experience. I talked about what happened to me. If that's trashing them, then maybe they should examine their own behavior. So it's everyone else's fault, Maher said, throwing his hands up again. The royal family, the British press, the institution, everyone except you. I never said it was everyone else's fault, Meghan replied, her voice becoming dangerously quiet. But I also won't accept responsibility for other people's racism and cruelty. And I certainly won't sit here and let you gaslight me into thinking I deserved it. Gaslight. Maher laughed harshly. That's rich. You're the one trying to rewrite history. You're the one who went from being America's sweetheart to the most controversial woman in the world. And somehow, it's everyone else's fault. I never asked to be controversial, Meghan shot back, her voice cracking slightly. I just wanted to be treated fairly. I wanted my husband to be able to protect me and our children. When that didn't happen, we left. End of story. End of story. Maher's voice was getting louder again. If it was the end of the story, you wouldn't still be talking about it. You wouldn't still be doing interviews about how terrible your life was. You'd move on. Move on. Meghan's eyes were blazing now. Move on from racism. Move on from being told, my son might be too dark for the royal family. Move on from being driven to suicidal thoughts. Should I just pretend that never happened? I'm not saying pretend it never happened, Maher replied, but his voice was losing some of its conviction. I'm saying maybe, just maybe, you could take some responsibility for your part in all this. My part? Meghan's voice was barely controlled now. What part, Bill? What exactly did I do wrong? Fall in love with a prince? Try to fit into a family that didn't want me speak up when I was being mistreated? You knew what you were getting into, Maher said, his voice becoming more aggressive again. You knew the royal family was traditional and conservative. You knew the British press could be brutal. But you thought you could change everything, and when you couldn't, you threw a tantrum. A tantrum? Meghan stood up so quickly, her chair nearly toppled over. A tantrum? Is that what you call it when someone tries to preserve their mental health and protect their family? I call it what it is, Maher replied, standing as well. A privileged woman who couldn't handle not getting her way. So she decided to burn down the institution that gave her everything. Gave me everything. Meghan's voice was shaking with fury now. That institution nearly destroyed me. It nearly cost me my life. And you're sitting here acting like I should be grateful for that? You should be grateful for the platform it gave you, Maher shot back. Without that marriage, you'd still be a cable TV actress nobody had heard of. Now you're one of the most famous women in the world, and you're using that fame to play victim. The audience was completely silent now, some people looking away in embarrassment. The confrontation had reached a level of toxicity that was painful to watch. Meghan's face was flushed with anger and hurt, her hands clenched into fists at her sides. You know what, Bill? She said, her voice dangerously quiet. I've heard enough. This isn't an interview. This is a hit job. You invited me here to humiliate me, to tear me down, to make yourself look clever at my expense. I invited you here to ask real questions, Maher replied, but there was something defensive in his tone now. If you can't handle real questions, maybe you shouldn't be in the public eye. Real questions? Meghan's voice was rising again. You haven't asked me a single real question? You've just hurled insults and accusations. You've dismissed my experiences, minimized my pain, and questioned my integrity. And now you're acting like I'm the problem for not sitting here and taking it. Maybe because you are the problem, Maher said, his voice cutting through the studio. Maybe the problem is that you can't handle any criticism without crying racism or sexism, or whatever other ism you want to hide behind. The words hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Meghan stared at him for a long moment, her breathing rapid and shallow. When she finally spoke, her voice was steady but filled with cold fury. You know what, Bill? You're right about one thing. I can't handle this. I can't handle sitting here listening to you dismiss and minimize everything I've been through. I can't handle being lectured by someone who has never walked in my shoes about how I should respond to racism and abuse. Then maybe you should leave, Maher said, his voice challenging. Maybe I should, Meghan replied, her voice growing stronger. Maybe I should walk out of here and let everyone see exactly what kind of person you really are. Maybe I should let them see how you treat guests who don't fit your narrow worldview. The tension in the studio was suffocating now. The audience was completely silent, the camera operators exchanging worried glances. This had moved far beyond the realm of normal television and into something genuinely disturbing. Go ahead and leave, Maher said, his voice dripping with disdain. Run away. That's what you do best, isn't it? When things get tough, you run. You ran from England, you ran from your family, and now you're running from me. Meghan's eyes widened in shock and rage. How dare you? How dare you stand there and mock me for protecting myself and my family? You have no idea what I've been through, what I've sacrificed. Sacrificed? Maher laughed bitterly. What have you sacrificed? You live in a mansion in Montecito? You have lucrative deals with Netflix and Spy? You're worth millions of dollars. What exactly have you sacrificed? I sacrificed my relationship with my father, Meghan said, her voice breaking slightly. I sacrificed my privacy, my safety, my peace of mind. I sacrificed the chance to have a normal life. But you wouldn't understand that because you've never had to make choices like that. Oh, please, Maher scoffed. Spare me the sob story. You made your choices, and you got rich doing it. Don't pretend you're some tragic figure. I'm not pretending. Anything, Meghan snapped, her composure completely gone now. I'm telling you the truth about what my life has been like, but you don't want to hear the truth. You want to hear your version of events where I'm some manipulative villain. Maybe because that's exactly what you are, Maher said, his voice cutting through the studio like a knife. "Maybe you are a manipulative person who uses race and victimhood to get what you want." The audience gasped audibly. Several people stood up, some heading for the exits. The atmosphere in the studio had become genuinely hostile, and everyone could feel it. Meghan stood frozen for a moment, her face cycling through shock, hurt, and then pure rage. "That's it," she said, her voice shaking with fury. "I'm done. I am absolutely done with this." She turned toward the cameras, her voice becoming stronger and more controlled. "I want everyone watching this to see what just happened here. I want them to see how this man just called me manipulative for speaking about racism." "Don't turn this into a performance," Maher said, moving closer to her. "Don't try to make yourself look like the victim here. I don't need to make myself look like anything," Meghan replied, turning back to face him. "Your words speak for themselves. Everyone just heard you dismiss my experiences with racism as manipulation. Everyone just heard you mock my mental health struggles." "I didn't mock anything," Maher said, but his voice was becoming defensive. "I questioned your narrative. There's a difference." "No, there isn't," Meghan shot back. "Not when you refuse to listen to anything that doesn't fit your preconceived notions. Not when you attack me personally instead of engaging with the actual issues." "I am engaging with the issues," Maher replied angrily. "The issue is that you can't handle criticism without playing the race card." "There it is again," Meghan said, her voice rising to a shout. "The race card. Do you hear yourself? Do you understand how racist that phrase is?" "Oh, now I'm racist." Maher's voice was getting louder too. "Because I won't bow down to your victimhood narrative. Because I won't pretend that everything bad that happened to you was because of your race. You're racist because you dismiss legitimate concerns about racism as playing cards," Meghan yelled back. "You're racist because you think you get to decide what is and isn't racist. You're racist because you're more concerned with defending institutions than protecting people." "I am not racist," Maher shouted, his face red with anger. "I have fought for civil rights my entire career. I don't need to be lectured by someone who discovered racism when it became convenient for her." "Discovered racism?" Meghan's voice was incredulous. "Are you insane? I'm a biracial woman who grew up in America. I've been dealing with racism my entire life, but I suppose you think that's convenient too." "I think it's convenient that you never talked about it until you needed an excuse for why things didn't work out with the royal family," Maher replied, his voice venomous. "I never talked about it because I was trying to fit in," Meghan screamed. "I was trying to be what they wanted me to be. I was trying to make it work. But when I couldn't take it anymore, when I was literally thinking about ending my life, I finally spoke up. And apparently that makes me manipulative. It makes you someone who can't take responsibility for her own actions," Maher shot back. "What actions?" Meghan was shouting now, her voice echoing through the studio. "What did I do wrong? Tell me specifically what I did that was so terrible." "You married into the royal family and then tried to destroy it when you couldn't change it," Maher yelled back. "I tried to survive it," Meghan screamed. "I tried to protect my family. I tried to protect my son from the same treatment I was getting. But apparently that's destroying it." "You went on television and made accusations you couldn't prove," Maher replied, his voice hoarse from shouting. "I shared my experience," Meghan yelled back. "I told my truth. And if that's uncomfortable for people, maybe they should examine why." "Your truth isn't the only truth," Maher shouted. "It's my truth about my experience," Meghan screamed back. "And I have every right to share it." The confrontation had reached a fever pitch. Both of them were red-faced and shouting, their voices echoing through the studio. The audience was completely silent now, some people covering their ears. The camera operators were looking to their director for guidance, clearly unsure whether to keep filming. "You know what?" Meghan said, her voice suddenly dropping to a dangerous whisper. "I'm going to do something I should have done at the beginning of this ambush. I'm going to leave. But before I do, I want everyone to know that this is exactly the kind of treatment that drove me out of England. This is exactly the kind of hostility and dismissal that I was trying to escape." "Don't blame me for your problems," Maher said, his voice still aggressive but slightly quieter. "I'm not blaming you for my problems," Meghan replied, gathering her purse and preparing to leave. "I'm blaming you for your behavior tonight. I'm blaming you for your refusal to listen. I'm blaming you for your casual racism and your complete lack of empathy." "I don't have to listen to this," Maher said. But his voice was losing its conviction. "No, you don't," Meghan agreed, walking toward the edge of the set. "But everyone else does. Everyone else gets to see exactly who you are." As she moved toward the exit, Maher called out one final time. "Running away again, Meghan? Is that your solution to everything?" Meghan stopped and turned around, her face a mask of cold fury. "No, Bill, I'm not running away. I'm making a choice. I'm choosing not to subject myself to your abuse anymore. I'm choosing to protect my dignity and my peace of mind, something you clearly know nothing about." With that, she walked off the set, leaving Maher standing alone in the stunned silence of the studio. The audience sat in shocked silence, unsure whether to applaud or simply leave. The cameras continued rolling, capturing Maher's face as he realized that his confrontational approach had backfired spectacularly. The interview that was supposed to be a typical promotional appearance had turned into a complete disaster, with one of the most famous women in the world walking out after being subjected to what many would later describe as a racist and sexist attack. The footage would be analyzed and debated for months to come, with most observers agreeing that Maher had crossed several lines and shown a side of himself that many found deeply disturbing. As the credits rolled and the audience filed out in uncomfortable silence, it was clear that this would go down as one of the most controversial moments in television history. The confrontation had revealed something ugly about both the nature of celebrity interviews and the way powerful men in media treat women who dare to speak their truth. What did you think of this explosive confrontation? Do you think Meghan was right to walk out, or should she have stayed and continued the fight? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and make sure to subscribe for more incredible celebrity stories that you won't believe actually happened.